All right, folks, we need to talk because something is brewing inside this Blue Jays clubhouse that honestly has me more concerned than the losing streak itself. And I'm not just talking about the bullpen situation or the Jeff Hoffman drama that we've been covering the last couple days. There is something deeper going on here, something that feels like it's been simmering beneath the surface for weeks now, and it finally boiled over yesterday in a way that I genuinely did not expect. So buckle up because we have a lot to get through today. Let's start with Jeff Hoffman because there are actually some new updates directly from Schneider that are going to rub a lot of you the wrong way.
Now you guys know where I stand on this.
I made it very clear yesterday that the situation with Hoffman had reached a point where you simply cannot keep running him out there in the ninth inning and hoping for a different result. The numbers don't lie. The eye test doesn't lie. And yet here we are because Schneider came out and spoke about it, and his answer was essentially, we're going to use the off day to sit down with Jeff, have a conversation, talk about the role, and reevaluate everything going forward. He said he appreciates Hoffman's accountability after Hoffman spoke publicly about his own struggles, and Schneider made it very clear he does not want to make a knee-jerk reaction. He wants to support him, work with him mechanically, help him mentally, figure out what's going on between the ears, and then go from there. Now look, I understand why a manager does that. You protect your players publicly. You don't throw guys under the bus. That is professionalism, and I respect that side of it. But here is where the frustration comes from for the fans, and I think it's completely valid frustration. This team is 10-14. You are not in a position right now where you can afford to be patient with a closer who is actively costing you ball games. The margin for error on this roster right now is basically zero, and every loss feels like it has a magnified impact on where this team is headed. So you can appreciate a guy's accountability all you want, but at some point the results have to matter more than the feelings. Now here is what I actually think is going to happen, and this is important. I think internally they have already made the decision or are very close to making it, and what Schneider is doing publicly is giving Hoffman the respect of having that conversation privately first before anything gets announced. That is the right way to handle it as a human being and as a manager. But if you watch that game tomorrow night and Louis Varland is closing, you will know. That will be your answer, without anyone having to say a word. And speaking of Varland, this is where I want to spend a minute because the conversation around him being the closer almost misses the bigger point. Louis Varland right now is the second best reliever in all of baseball this year. I am not exaggerating that. Behind Mason Miller, Varland has been absolutely filthy, and the worst thing this organization could do is take a guy who can impact the game in the third inning, the fifth inning, the seventh inning, whatever the highest leverage moment happens to be, and say you are only allowed to throw the ninth. That is how you waste one of the most valuable resources you have on this entire roster. The closer role almost has to be a bonus for Varland, not a limitation. If the game calls for him in the sixth, you use him in the sixth. Some nights, that will naturally be the ninth inning. But you cannot put him in a box. The thought of pairing him with Braden Fischer, where Varland takes the highest leverage spot and Fischer handles the ninth when it's a clean situation, actually makes a ton of sense. Fischer, before yesterday, had been one of the most efficient relievers in the league this year with elite strikeout to walk numbers. One rough outing does not erase what he's been doing. That is a legitimate backhand combination if the Jays choose to move in that direction. But now we need to talk about Eric Lauer. Because this is the situation that has me genuinely unsettled in a way the bullpen drama doesn't even come close to. And I want to be really careful about how I frame this because I don't want to pile on a guy unfairly, but I also have to be honest with you guys about what I'm seeing because what is happening with Eric Lauer and this coaching staff is not normal. It does not reflect what this team is supposed to be about. So here's what happened. During yesterday's game, cameras caught Eric Lauer with tape on his neck. His velocity was noticeably down. He was sitting 87 to 89 miles per hour, which for Lauer is significantly below where he needs to be. After the game, reporters obviously asked Schneider about it, and Schneider's response genuinely stunned people. He said he had no idea about it until he saw it on the broadcast. He then checked in with Lauer after the game, and Lauer told him he felt fine. But here's where it gets strange. When Lauer was then asked about it, he said he'd had the neck issue for a couple of days, but he didn't really feel the need to make sure the manager and coaches necessarily knew about it because in his mind it wasn't an injury risk, just a reminder to be aware of some tightness. Now I want you to sit with that for a second. Your starting pitcher goes out there with a physical issue that has visibly affected his velocity. The manager finds out about it from watching the broadcast rather than from his own pitcher or medical staff, and the pitcher's response is essentially that he didn't think it was worth mentioning. On a team that prides itself on being tight-knit, on communication, on everyone being bought in together, that is a massive red flag. And it doesn't even exist in isolation. Lauer has been sending strange signals Berrios through 4 shutout innings yesterday on 55 pitches and looks sharp. Kikuchi is getting closer. There is reason for optimism beyond the drama if this team can get themselves right. But they have to clean this up internally, and they have to do it fast. Comment down below. I want to know where you guys stand on the Lauer situation especially because I have a feeling this one is far from over.